Quite a lot of things have changed from my last tier list video, both in game and in the real world, and I do hope every one of you is doing okay. But before we begin with the tier list, I would like to say a couple of things. Now, I guess you know me by now, and I do not want to flame anyone, I do not want to rant, I do not want to say bad things about the publisher or the developer. I just want to state how I feel like the game is doing right now, and I think this is important to explain because it will lead me in discussing this tier list for patch 7.3. So after 7.0 we started to get a series of systems which kinda reminds me of 5.x times. Like if you think of the random proc on hit stuff and all of those various upgrade systems that force you to spend money on the game. Well, now we have that kind of things, except it is much more, I think. Therefore, when I tried to come up with a tier list, I found it very difficult to compare classes, because when one has even a single upgraded thing and the other does not have that, like a golden stigma, say, you can't simply compare the two characters, the two classes, and this happens very frequently in the real game. So I had to make strong assumptions to make this tier list work, and they are quite unrealistic in my opinion. I compare fully geared, upgraded and full golden stigmas and ultimate forms users, and trust me, it was very difficult to even find footage to show what I wanted to display. Maybe also because less and less players support this way of playing, I suppose. Anyway, even if I did not want to make a rant, I hope this is quite clear, and this is my point before we begin. So let's go into my tier list for Aion 7.3. For the tier C this time, I do not know if it is starting to get sad or a meme, but we always find the sorcerer here. For some reason this class is not getting any love at all by the developer, though some minor implementation have been made it just slightly stronger. I am talking about the removal of the magic defense resistances on slapped targets, so this is just very minor, tiny detail. I still suppose that the usual cover silence combo into full bars kind of gameplay does not work anymore, but maybe this is a difference that has some reason to exist in the game. Anyway, the sorcerer has to play a very tactical game to win duels now, something that is very frustrating when compared to the top classes of this tier list, which can simply one-shot after the correct rotation. So at the moment I can't find a single reason to recommend this class, and I'm afraid that the sorcerer will be very low until the game changes in its fundamentals once again. Moving to tier B, I've placed here a couple of classes that some of you will be surprised to see. The ranger is probably the strongest in this category, however I have placed it here mainly for a single specific reason. The new Devanium malform is quite strong, but if you do use the high attack one, you are also stuck in place and lose attack range, which I feel is too much. I thought you could work around this by activating and deactivating this skill at the correct time, but this malform has a very long cooldown compared to the others. So I feel like this can be used, but it's more like of a troll skill to make you feel like a gunner for a couple of seconds. I think a good ranger simply can't be stuck in place. Moreover, the other skills changes have not been very significant, while other classes have received more buffs. So I've placed the ranger here, though if you do use the other PvP malform and are good at what you're doing, I think this class is still solid. The next class I've placed in tier B kinda suffers of the same issue, and I'm talking about, of course, the Aether Tech. Now, the AT has even less range than the Rangers, so it's surely a bit lower in tier B, though the AT is still that one annoying anti-control class with its random resists. Another interesting point to me is that the golden stigmas of the AT do not boost it so much, though there are some interesting ones. So yeah, there is not much to say about, also because for a series of reasons it seems like the AT is still not very much played. Moving to the last character, I've also placed here the Chandler, though I think it is quite solid overall. The Chandler can still do everything and deals quite a bit of damage. However, I feel like this patch is dominated by strong control classes that can output high burst. The Chandra has some tools that counter that, but it does not have strong enough heals nor an insane burst. So, as I said, it does everything, but at the moment it does not shine. I think the support side of the class has been very interesting to play, but is now a bit neglected. But once again, the shields and buffs provided by the Chandra are still quite strong. NCSoft has simply focused on the DPS side for some time, I believe, after the 6-point-something incident with the OP recovery spell. Anyway, the Chanter is still the number one bully class for plates, for the melee classes, but as you will see in a minute, even them have been buffed more than this class. The tier A category includes the most classes of this patch, but it does not necessarily mean that they are all equally strong. The Cleric is the best example of this, as it barely makes it to tier A in my opinion for a couple of reasons. First of all, the skill changes of the balance update have been a bit stupid, as they mainly aimed at buffing servants, which no one really uses, and still nothing has been done to change the DPS side of the class, which has been very boring to play for some time. That said, I think the Cleric is stronger now compared to before because of the strength of its golden stigmas, which are very good compared to other classes in terms of raw stats. Say even the Cold Lightning deals some serious damage. I also think that the Devanion skills is very good, as one resets the cooldown of Sage's Wisdom and Amplification, while the other restores a good amount of HP and MP, but also provides defensive stats for some time. Also, the usage cost is very low and allows the Cleric to almost spam this DP, this salvation. The next class I placed here is the Temper. Now, I do not have much to say about the Temper, but the main idea is that it is one of the few classes that can in fact survive to a one-shot combo rotation and come back to full HP like nothing else happened, but still I think some of the golden stigmas are not as good as others from other classes, say for example the Gladiator. Still, I think I've placed both classes here for a reason, and it is because the Templar is still very useful in group PvP. However, as the raw HP number increases for all classes, the Templar seems to suffer a bit from its lack of pure boss damage. Lastly, the improved Devanion is just not that great in my opinion. It is yet another grab in both of its versions and does not have anything special. Now, the Gladiator reaches tier A very easily with its recent changes. The new Devanion skills are very good for the Gladiator playstyle, as they effectively allow for another additional CC and long stumble, or for some interesting resets on other stumble skills. The golden stigmas are also very good, especially when combined with red berserking, which I've seen being used almost always by all Korean gladiators. If I had to name a reason why the gladiator does not make it to tier S, I would say that it still lacks defenses and suffers too much from crowd control, so it can be easily burst down by some of the tier S classes and the next two tier A character I will discuss right now. The Gunner is without doubt the strongest tier A class, and I was really undecided if it deserved a tier S. The Devanion skills are both quite good, but I feel like they force the Gunner to make a choice on what to use, so the red one is more similar to the basic Magic Force, except it buffs magical accuracy, and the green one lasts less but gives you more damage. However, it is very low in terms of the duration, and it is basically something the gunner must use at a very precise moment and can probably be countered somehow. That said, the gunner golden stigmas basically all provide more damage, which is the reason why the gunner is still that high in the tier list. So I think the gunner is still very solid. It has received some minor changes, but overall, I think because it does not have very strong CC, it does not make it to tier S yet, though it is very close. The last tier A class is the Painter, which got the biggest nerfs of the patch. As you know, the lasers now tick every 1 second instead of 0.5 or even lower, making the damage very low and forcing the player, the Painter, to play in a different style. The Golden Punch Stigma is just the perfect thing you want to use now instead of focusing on lasers, and I also suggest swapping to the defensive laser, which you can use as a permanent defense buff, which in my opinion makes the painter more interesting to play. The new Devanion DP is similar to the Gunner's one, but the burst version lasts even less, so I am really conflicted about its usability. It is 10 seconds long, but I still think it is a very dangerous tool when used correctly. That said, the nerfs have been strong and the painter has fallen down to a lower tier compared to before. It is quite good, yes, but most importantly, the changes to lasers, the changes to the gameplay and the combos on the petrification have been very significant. And most importantly, it still lacks strong defensive tools. So overall, the painter makes it only to tier A. Before I talk about the tier S category, let me clarify once again that some of these classes make it here only because of all of the assumptions that I've made before talking about this tier list. So, especially having an ultimate transformation changes the gameplay completely for some of these classes that you see here. Now, on top of that, the classes you see maybe have some kind of OP skill or are not very balanced right now. So you may wonder why I've placed the Assassin here, and I will start from it as it is probably the weakest tier S class. The Assassin ends up here mainly because it is the main counter for the other two strongest classes in this category, but I think that is not all. The new Devanion skills are very strong for arenas, duels, group PvP, whatever, and I especially believe the shorter 5 seconds wind walk is very strong as it allows for a lot of counterplay. Just think, for example, of the possibility of using very often ambush raid, which is the stun you can only use during the hide state. The Assassin has also been getting some low-key OP damage buffs during the last patches and quality of life improvements like the additional range on the Slayer form, the crit damage, and so on, crit buffs and all that stuff, ranged skills. So overall the Assassin is not that hard to play right now. It is the counter for the two main classes here, and it does not struggle that much against all the other characters in the lower lists. So for this reason it makes it to tier S, though it is once again the weakest one here. The second OP tier S class is without doubt the Spirit Master. Though the main skill changes involved buffs to the pet skills, I think that what made DSM so strong now was the combination of its golden stigmas, which are all very, very strong, and the use of the ultimate form. Just take for example the Spirit Bundling skill, which is the vision buff. This is now a buff that lasts 3 minutes with a 1 minute cooldown from its initial CD of 3 minutes. What this means is that even if the Spirit Master dies, it is focused, it will rest up and have the buff ready very quickly. And as you know, the buff is very, very strong in all kind of stats. Now, besides that one, there are also some other skills which are very dangerous, say the Fear that can be really resisted, the Devanion one, and the high damage single target skill, which I do not know why DSM has that. So overall the Spirit Master has everything it takes to be the number one duelist, but also some kind of a better version of a sorcerer. Finally, the most ridiculous class of this patch, especially if you do own an ultimate form, is the Bard. This class simply got it all after being low tier for some time, and the new Devanion is basically a single target one-shot skill, and on top of that, the Bard already has the infamous Frog Vision, which is now a normal skill. The Bard can simply throw a control and proceed to one-shot you, but also it has a very good defensive kit. The abilities and heals are very good. As a matter of fact, NCSoft gave the Bard some buffs which I do not know if were really needed, like buffs to Rejuvenation Melody, buffs to Snowflower Melody and others. Overall, I think the Bard as a full gear character with everything maxed is pretty much impossible to kill, mainly because this class works so well with the current meta of one shot and strong CC. So with the tier S, I've concluded my tier list discussion, though maybe this time it would have been better to put an S plus category. I don't know, maybe for the next time, if I will make another tier list video. Anyway, with this I conclude my discussion, and as always, I thank you for reaching this point of this video. And keep in mind, this is just my opinion and something funny I came out with. I've read somewhere that this is kind of an Aion Bible, or from, I think it was on the NCSoft forums, and someone linked my own video. Guys, this is just something to discuss and a format that I like to make. So anyway, I will see you very soon, guys. Thank you again.